Miriam Cross was ordered to stand beside the boy she had raised for 9 years and teach him how to forget her. The order was read at Stone Pine Pack School, where royal children struck the First Howl Drum and were recognized before the pack. 10-year-old Jonas Flint stood beside Miriam in a white ceremonial coat, his fingers locked around hers. Council matron Petra Lorne held the Memory Severance Rite between both hands. "Jonas will place his palms upon the First Howl Drum," she said. "Miriam will stand behind him with one hand over his heart. She will sing the 4-note counting song backward. After each reversed note, Jonas will answer with one line of the royal blood chant." Petra nodded toward the bone whistle held by the chant leader. "The whistle gives the severance pitch. Only Miriam's voice can carry it into the care bond. The king's blood seal may begin the rite, but the 4th reversed note must come from her. You are asking me to use the song that kept him alive to teach his wolf that I was never there. The law was written after a royal cub's first howl fractured between 2 maternal calls. His wolf turned on both houses. Then investigate which story was falsified. Do not cut away the woman who stayed, because truth takes longer than ceremony." Across the hall, Helena Ward stood beneath guard near the stone doors, thinner than the portrait in Jonas's nursery. She did not look victorious. She looked afraid. Jonas tightened his hand around Miriam's. "You said my mother died." Miriam lowered herself until they were eye to eye. "I was told she did." Helena gripped the doorway. "I was told Miriam knew I was alive and refused every letter I sent. I was told you abandoned him before his naming moon." Petra folded the decree tighter. "These claims can be examined after the first howl. You do not cut a bond first and investigate the lie afterward," Miriam said. Alpha King Conrad Flint stood behind the drum in black ceremonial armor. The decree already carried his black wax seal, authorizing the hearing. His blood thumb would make the severance enter Jonas's memory. "You signed the hearing order," Miriam said. "The council warned that 2 maternal claims could endanger his first public shift. I am not claiming his blood. Pack law recognizes care, bonds, as succession influence. I held him through lung fever. I slept beside him when nightmares made him fear his own wolf. I taught him not to bite the healers when his first shift broke through. If the law calls that influence, perhaps it finally named one thing correctly." Petra's voice remained gentle. "The rite protects Jonas from divided loyalty. Did he ask to be protected from me?" "He is a child," Conrad said. "He is old enough to remember who stayed." Conrad's gaze dropped to their joined hands. 9 years earlier, Jonas's fever had silenced his young wolf. Miriam held him against her chest and sang 4 notes between each failing breath until his heartbeat followed hers. Near dawn, Conrad knelt beside them. "He knows your heart before he knows my crown. I will not let anyone take that from him." Miriam looked at him now. "The counting song," Jonas whispered. "Yes." Petra signaled the chant leader. "The ritual begins." Jonas pulled back. "I will not forget her." Petra reached for his wrist. "The law cannot ask permission from a child burdened by conflicting bonds." "Release him," Miriam said. Conrad spoke first. "Let him go." Petra obeyed. Without severance, Jonas's recognition as heir may be suspended for 1 year. His first public shift may fracture beneath competing maternal rhythms. Helena stepped away from the guards. "I did not ask you to erase her." Petra turned toward her. "Lady Helena, the council is restoring the place taken from you. No one restores me by teaching my son to forget the woman who raised him." Jonas looked between them, frightened. Miriam moved closer but did not pull him away from Helena. Conrad descended from the drum platform. "Miriam." He stopped 1 step from her. "Private gratitude means nothing from a man willing to erase me publicly. The succession cannot remain uncertain." "Then say the truth. You are not choosing his safety. You are choosing a quieter court." An elder lowered the succession staff. Conrad looked at Jonas, the waiting elders, and the decree bearing his first seal. His thumb paused above the silver activation mark. Miriam stood behind Jonas and placed 1 hand over his heart. "If you sign again, do not tell yourself Petra made the choice for you." Conrad pressed his blood thumb to the decree. Silver light moved across the page. The blood seal opened Jonas's memory to the right. The whistle could wound the rhythm. Only Miriam's voice could erase it. The whistle gave her the first reversed pitch. Miriam closed her mouth. She would not use the voice that had taught him to breathe, to teach him she had never mattered. The wrong note entered Jonas's wolf. He jerked beneath her hand. "Repeat the royal blood chant," Petra ordered. Jonas shook his head. The chant leader raised the whistle for the second reversed pitch. Jonas tore away and struck the first howl drum with both hands. The expected royal blood rhythm did not come. One deep beat sounded, then another. Slow, uneven, familiar. The rhythm of Miriam's heart on the night his fever nearly killed him. The drum gave 4 beats. Between them came the counting song in its true order. Jonas turned toward Miriam, his young wolf gold behind his eyes. The first howl drum spoke. Mother stayed. The drum had named what Jonas remembered. It had not yet decided what the law was allowed to erase. The final words remained beneath the rafters of Stone Pine Pack School, while the first howl drum continued beating Miriam's 4-note song in its true order. Jonas clung to her sleeve. Council matron Petra Lorne recovered first. "A survival imprint," she said. "Nothing more." Helena Ward moved away from the guards. It called her mother. It repeated the child's memory of one fever night. The drum has not ruled on legal maternity, succession, or blood claim. Miriam kept one hand over Jonas's heart. His pulse was too fast. No one asked it to rule against Helena. Petra folded the memory severance decree. "Then you understand the distinction. The bond may be real and still require removal." "No," Helena said. Petra turned toward her. Helena's fingers pressed into the stone doorway. "You brought me here saying my son had been taught to reject me. You did not tell me restoring my place required taking his memories of Miriam. The council is preventing permanent division. You created the division before either of us entered this hall." The chant leader lifted the bone whistle again. Conrad Flint stepped between him and the drum. "Lower it." Petra's expression tightened. "The rite has begun. An interrupted severance may leave the care bond unstable. You said Miriam's voice was required to complete it." "It is." "Then there will be no second note." The chant leader lowered the whistle. Miriam looked at Conrad. "Stopping what you activated does not return the moment before you chose it." "I know. Do you?" He glanced at Jonas, who still held her sleeve as if the wrong rhythm might pull her away. "I knew the seal would open his memory, and pressed it anyway." "Yes." The answer carried no request for mercy. Jonas looked up at Miriam. "Can we go home?" "Which home?" Petra asked gently. Miriam turned on her. "Do not question a frightened child as though confusion proves your law correct." Jonas frowned. "The room with the blue window." Miriam's chest tightened. His room at Stone Pine had no blue window. He meant the nursery in the Eastern Lodge, where she had stayed with him during his first winter shift. "What was beside the window?" she asked. He stared at her. "The carved horse," Conrad said quietly. Jonas shook his head. "I do not remember a horse." Miriam felt his pulse stumble beneath her palm. She had carved it from pine after he broke his first toy during a nightmare. He had slept with it beneath his pillow for 4 years. Petra stepped closer. "A temporary lapse can follow ritual resistance." "You told me the rite would not harm him," Conrad said. "I said completed severance would remove distressing attachment." You interrupted the sequence. Miriam did not interrupt it. She refused to participate. Petra held his gaze. "And you activated it without securing her compliance." The truth landed where she intended it. On Conrad. Miriam lifted Jonas into her arms despite his age. He pressed his face against her shoulder. "The counting song," he whispered. She sang only the first note. His breathing eased. The drum answered, with one low beat. Petra looked toward the school elders. "The instrument is responding to familiar regulation. That still does not establish motherhood." "Then bring the fever records," Miriam said. "The records are 9 years old. They were kept here." Stone Pine monitored every royal cub whose wolf failed to answer. Conrad turned to the schoolkeeper. "Bring them." Petra raised one hand. "Private healer records should not be opened before the full pack." "You opened his memory before the full pack," Miriam said. "The record can endure the same witness." The keeper returned with a narrow black volume bound in worn hide. An elder opened to the year of Jonas's illness. "Royal cub, unresponsive to blood call," he read. "Wolf rhythm absent after 3rd fever night. Moon physicians advised preparation for loss." Conrad's face hardened. The elder continued. "Caregiver Miriam Cross maintained chest contact through the 4th night. Child's heartbeat synchronized to caregiver rhythm after repeated 4-note vocal pattern." Helena closed her eyes briefly. When did his wolf answer? She asked. The elder traced the next line. At dawn. First response recorded beneath Miriam Cross's heartbeat. Jonas lifted his head from Miriam's shoulder. I knew your heart. Yes, she said. Petra addressed the elders before the moment could settle. Survival synchronization proves dependence during illness. It does not grant permanent legal motherhood. Miriam looked at Helena. Helena met her gaze without hostility. Then the law must find a way to recognize what happened without erasing either of us, Helena said. Petra's tone remained calm. Two recognized mothers around a royal heir create competing rights. Only if the council insists family must have one winner, Miriam replied. Conrad looked toward the decree bearing his blood seal. Seal the severance record, he ordered. No further note is performed until the council explains why Helena and Miriam were given opposing accounts. Petra did not move. You risk Jonas's heir recognition. I already risked his memory. The schoolkeeper closed the fever record. A loose page slipped from the back binding. It carried no healer notation. Only 2 succession classifications entered years apart. Care bond classified as temporary by succession order. Birth mother correspondence withheld before Helena Ward's return. The word temporary had been entered beside Miriam's bond 9 years earlier. No one in Stonepine Pack School had yet shown that she understood what the word would one day permit. Conrad Flint kept the loose page on the evidence table, where Miriam and Helena could see it. Care bond, classified as temporary by succession order. Verified correspondence from Helena Ward, withheld from the royal household by succession review order. Helena read the second line twice. Verified. The schoolkeeper nodded. Her identity had been confirmed. And my letters never reached Conrad, Miriam, or Jonas. Not through the royal household. Petra Lorne folded the Memory Severance Decree. Correspondence concerning an heir may be screened for coercion or succession interference. Helena looked at her. You answered me. The council answered on behalf of the household. You told me Jonas had rejected me. We reported the risk of emotional disruption. Miriam kept one arm around Jonas. No. I was told what made me easier to use. Conrad turned to the first entry. Who classified the care bond? The succession office, the keeper said. The date is the 4th night of Jonas's fever. That was the night Petra brought a nursery authorization before dawn, Miriam said. Petra looked at her. Emergency access required written permission. Miriam faced the keeper. Stonepine kept emergency nursery permissions separately from healer records. In the nursery registry. Conrad's voice sharpened. Open it. Petra raised one hand. The registry requires a second royal witness. Helena stepped forward. Then use me. Your maternal standing remains under review. My blood was sufficient when the council wanted Miriam erased. It is sufficient to witness a book. An elder inclined his head. Helena Ward may serve. The keeper unlocked a cabinet beneath the school dais and placed the nursery registry beside the loose page. Miriam found the date herself. A folded authorization had been sewn into the binding. Her signature waited at the bottom, uneven from exhaustion. Conrad looked at it. What were you told? That if I wanted to remain in the nursery after the physicians withdrew, I had to sign. Petra answered calmly. Miriam was not legally appointed family. The authorization gave her a lawful place when she had none. You told me the council would remove me if I refused, Miriam said. The guards were there to secure the royal nursery. They were waiting outside his room. Helena stepped closer. She was trying to keep him alive. The authorization preserved care during a royal medical crisis. Miriam looked at her signature. I signed because your guards were waiting to take me from his room. The First Howl Drum gave one quiet beat. Jonas pressed closer. Did Miriam know she was temporary? Miriam looked down at him. I knew the paper used the word. I believed temporary meant until you recovered. I did not know it meant every year afterward could be dismissed as borrowed time. Jonas took her hand again and looked toward Helena. Conrad's gaze stayed on the authorization. 9 years ago, I promised no law would call you temporary. You made that promise after I signed. And I never asked what Petra had placed before you. No, I should have. His hand moved toward the page, then stopped before touching Miriam's signature. He lifted the royal seal strip from its edge instead, leaving her name uncovered. Helena looked at Petra. You let her stay because Jonas was dying. Then you kept the power to remove her. The council retained authority to review any care bond affecting succession. Review is not the same as adding terms after she signed, Miriam said. Two narrow conditions appeared above her signature. Care bond expires upon restoration of lawful birth mother. Maternal memory subject to severance before First Howl. Miriam stared at the lines. Those were not there. Petra faced the elders. Administrative conditions may be entered by succession authority after emergency approval. Without telling the signer? Conrad asked. The authorization concerned access, not permanent maternal standing. Miriam turned to the keeper. Can you date the additions? He placed the page beneath the moon glass. Miriam's signature and the original authorization held the same dull silver age. The added conditions glowed with newer ink and the pale registry dust used by the succession office. The conditions were entered 2 years ago. Helena's face tightened. The year I first wrote to Stonepine. Petra remained composed. Helena Ward's identity was still under evaluation. The loose page says verified correspondence, Conrad said. Verification may precede public recognition. Miriam looked at the additions. They prepared the severance before anyone told Jonas his mother was alive. Precaution is not conspiracy, Petra said. The council had to plan for competing claims. Then why hide the plan from the women it would cut apart? Maternal conflict around a royal heir required controlled timing. Conrad took the authorization from beneath the moon glass, but did not return it to the registry. This document remains before the school witnesses. Petra's expression hardened. You are removing a royal care order from succession protection. I am removing it from the office that altered it. The First Howl Drum gave another slow beat. Beneath the newer conditions, faint pressure marks had passed through from a scheduling slip once laid above the authorization. The keeper angled the moon glass until one buried line appeared. Care bond expiration scheduled before Helena Ward's return was publicly recorded. Someone had chosen an expiration date for Miriam's bond before Helena's return became public. The signature authorizing that date was still missing. Council matron Petra Lorne stood beneath the rafters of Stonepine Pack School with the altered nursery authorization before her. Succession scheduling is not performed by one person, she said. The office prepares contingencies for every event that may affect the royal heir. Miriam kept one hand on Jonas's shoulder. A contingency that opens his memory and removes me from it. A precaution against competing maternal claims. Helena stepped closer to the evidence table. You keep calling us claims because it is easier than admitting we are two women you lied to. Petra's expression remained controlled. The council managed unverified information until it could be safely presented. My identity was verified, Helena said. Verified privately. Not yet entered into public succession record. Conrad Flint looked toward the school keeper. Where are bond expiration schedules recorded? In the succession registry. Open it. Petra answered before the keeper moved. That registry requires 3 authorities: succession office, royal household, and heir education. Then summon all 3 witnesses. You risk exposing internal protections around Jonas. I already exposed his memory to a rite built on altered terms. The keeper brought a black registry chest from beneath the council dais. 3 seals crossed its lid. The Stonepine elder broke the school seal. Helena served as household blood witness. Conrad placed his own signet beside the royal lock. Petra did not touch the final seal. The succession office should not be forced to surrender private planning because one authorization was amended lawfully. Miriam looked at her. If it was lawful, the registry should help you. Petra broke the last seal. Inside lay narrow scheduling strips arranged by moon cycle. The keeper searched the year Helena first contacted Stonepine. Jonas stayed close to Miriam, his gaze moving between her and Helena. Will both of you still be here when I wake tomorrow? He asked. Miriam answered first. Yes. Helena nodded. If you want me here. He took Miriam's hand and reached toward Helena with the other. Helena accepted carefully. The keeper found the relevant strip. Care bond review before First Howl. Maternal restoration pending. Memory Severance Rite reserved. Conrad's jaw tightened. Reserved before Helena's return was announced. Succession procedure required preparation, Petra said. Helena looked at the notation. The council's replies to me mentioned his fear of winter thunder. Miriam turned toward her. What else? That he slept with a pine horse beneath his pillow. That he woke if the nursery fire went out. That he called the east window his blue window. Those details had never appeared in public records. Miriam had written them in the private care reports Conrad required after Jonas's fever. She looked at him. You sent my reports to succession custody. Conrad did not evade her gaze. Yes. Why? I believed the council needed accurate information about his health. You gave them the map of his dependence on me. I did not know they would use it against you. You gave private trust to an office that had never granted me legal standing. His face hardened with recognition. That was my failure. No, Miriam said. It was your decision. Failure makes it sound accidental. The First Howl Drum answered with one low beat. Petra turned to the elders. Care reports belong to the royal household. Their use in succession planning is standard. Standard does not mean harmless, Helena said. You used Miriam's words to convince me my son would break if I came near him. We assessed the risk based on his established care bond. You made the bond sound like a weapon. Petra folded the scheduling strip. The council prevented an abrupt maternal confrontation before the first howl. Miriam looked at Jonas between them. No, you prevented us from comparing the lies. Conrad faced the elders. Effective now. The Succession Council loses authority over Jonas's care records, maternal classifications, and memory rights until this inquiry is complete. Petra's composure thinned. Without council certification, his heir recognition cannot proceed. I know. The royal houses will challenge the delay. They may. His recognition could be suspended for a year. Conrad looked at his son. Then it will be suspended. The elder lowered the succession staff. The choice carried through the hall more heavily than any apology could have. Petra's voice cooled. You would place the throne at risk on the assumption that these records were misused? I placed my son at risk by assuming they were not. Miriam heard the cost in the decision. She did not confuse it with repair. The keeper entered Conrad's order into the public school record and removed the scheduling registry from Petra's custody. Then he examined the authorization strip more closely. There is a royal code attached. Conrad stepped nearer. Mine? The keeper nodded. Royal authorization, Conrad Flint. Petra's expression did not change. Then the king approved the scheduling. Conrad looked at the date. That night, I was not in Stonepine. The keeper checked the royal travel register. Your Majesty was at the northern boundary court. Helena tightened her hold on Jonas's hand. The keeper turned the strip beneath the moon glass. The code was genuine. The entry date was not. Royal authorization had been used in Conrad Flint's name while he was documented 3 days away from Stonepine. The forged authorization did not prove who had used Conrad Flint's name. It proved the succession office had learned how to act without him. The keeper left the scheduling strip beneath the moonglass. Conrad's royal code glowed along the margin while the travel register placed him 3 days north of Stonepine. Petra Lorne spoke first. Royal authorization may be delegated during absence. Conrad looked at her. To whom? The succession office may act under emergency authority when delay threatens the heir. Show me the delegation. Petra's hands remained folded. The code itself confirms it. No, Miriam said. The code confirms access, not permission. Jonas stood between Miriam and Helena, one hand in each of theirs. The wrong note from the interrupted rite still troubled his breathing. Conrad faced the schoolkeeper. Where is the master authorization register? In the royal seal vault. Bring it. Petra's expression tightened. That register contains military and succession orders unrelated to this inquiry. Then open the relevant pages under witness. You cannot divide a royal seal record without compromising the crown. Miriam met Conrad's gaze. That is the argument every office used when it wanted my life examined, but its own hands hidden. Open the vault, he said. The school elder lowered his staff. Releasing the register places every disputed order bearing your code under possible challenge. I understand. Petra stepped closer. You would weaken your authority because one entry appears irregular? Conrad looked at Jonas. I weakened it when I let my authority become a weapon against my son and never asked who was holding it. The royal seal vault was brought from the lower archive. Conrad removed the signet from his hand and placed it on the evidence table. That signet authorized border defenses, pack levies, and succession orders. Without it, even Conrad's lawful commands would require witnessed confirmation. The elder opened the vault. Inside rested the master register and a narrow book recording every duplicate royal code issued during travel. The keeper searched the date on the scheduling strip. One duplicate code was released that month. To whom? Helena asked. Succession Administration. Petra answered evenly. A lawful office. Witnessed by whom? Miriam asked. The next line had been scraped. Conrad's jaw hardened. Recover it. Under moon glass, pale silver dust gathered inside the damaged strokes. Only part of the name returned. Council matron. Petra did not move. A title is not an identity. Several matrons served succession review. Only one led it, Helena replied. You were not inside Stone Pine. You do not know how authority was divided. No, I was kept outside while your office answered my letters. Miriam looked at Conrad. How many duplicate codes did you allow succession to hold? One at a time. And who checked how it was used? The office returned a sealed report. You trusted the seal. Yes. The way you trusted the severance decree. Conrad did not look away. Yes. He closed the duplicate code book. Until this inquiry is complete, no order bearing my code remains valid without verification from the school elder and one maternal witness. A judge near the dais rose. That suspends active succession instructions across the pack. Yes. Petra's voice cooled. You are placing private grievance above governance. I am placing governance where private offices cannot imitate the king. He pushed his signet toward the school elder. Stonepine holds this seal until the code audit is complete. Miriam looked at him. The act cost him the certainty he had once chosen over her. Petra's composure thinned. A king does not surrender his signet during a succession dispute. This king does. Conrad turned to Miriam. I gave the council your care reports. I sealed the hearing. I activated the right. I cannot claim the code was stolen while keeping every privilege that made the theft possible. Correct, she said. The keeper opened the master register to the delegation order. Conrad's code appeared beside the succession request, but the purpose line had been cut away. Miriam leaned closer. Something was removed. A narrow attachment, the keeper said. Helena tightened her hold on Jonas's hand. Could it have contained my letters? A review summary, perhaps. Not the letters themselves. Jonas looked up at Miriam. Are they going to make me forget again? No, Conrad said. Miriam turned to him. Do not promise what the council can still reach. Then I will make the promise lawful. He faced the elder. Enter this now. No memory rite may touch Jonas Flint without the consent of Miriam Cross, Helena Ward, and Jonas himself. Petra's voice sharpened. A child cannot hold veto over succession protection. He can hold veto over who enters his mind. Jonas moved closer to both women. The elder began writing. The keeper lifted the cut, binding beneath the moonglass. A pressure mark remained where the missing attachment had rested. The First Howl Drum gave one slow beat. The hidden heading appeared. Verified maternal correspondence, Helena Ward. Below it, one line survived. Transfer subject to closed custody before public return. The missing attachment had not contained Helena Ward's letters. It had contained the order that kept her from delivering them herself. The schoolkeeper placed the cut binding beneath the moonglass, while the First Howl Drum held one low note beneath the rafters. Verified maternal correspondence, Helena Ward. Transfer subject to closed custody before public return. Helena released Jonas's hand. What does closed custody mean? Petra Lorne answered before the keeper could. Protective confinement during succession review. Helena looked at her. You called it quarantine. You arrived after years of absence, claiming access to the royal heir. The council had to verify identity, intent, and outside influence. You verified me before you locked me in the Northern Council residence. Petra's voice remained formal. Verification of identity did not remove the risk of political coercion. Miriam looked at Helena. How long? Helena swallowed once. 22 months. Jonas stared at her. You were in Stonepine? Not inside the school. Were you sick? No. His fingers tightened around Miriam's sleeve. Helena lowered herself until she was closer to his height, but did not reach for him. I kept asking to see you. Jonas looked toward Petra. Why didn't she? Petra faced Conrad instead. The royal child had formed an unusually deep care bond. Sudden contact with a returning birth mother could have destabilized his wolf before the first howl. Miriam's voice stayed quiet. So you imprisoned Helena because Jonas loved me. We delayed contact because two maternal rhythms presented a documented risk. You did more than delay it, Helena said. You answered my letters. Petra did not deny that. Helena continued. Shorter now. Each sentence carrying the weight of months spent unheard. You told me Miriam knew I was alive. The council could not confirm what information had reached the nursery. You wrote that she refused every request for contact. Council correspondence summarized the household position. There was no household position. There was yours. Conrad looked toward the keeper. Open the custody register. Petra's gaze sharpened. That record contains security assessments unrelated to this inquiry. It concerns the mother of my son. It concerns a possible succession claimant. Helena stood. I never claimed the throne. I asked whether my child was alive. The school elder placed one hand on the registry chest. Under the king's suspension order, records affecting Jonas's maternal bonds remain before Stonepine witnesses. Petra looked at Conrad's signet, resting beyond her reach. For the first time, procedure no longer belonged entirely to her. The keeper opened the custody register. Helena Ward's name appeared beneath a succession protection order. The first months recorded identity testing, interview dates, and intercepted correspondence. Then the entries changed. Maternal contact denied, due established care bond. Visitor access refused. Release postponed until First Howl preparation complete. Miriam read the final line twice. You planned to keep her hidden until after the severance. Petra remained controlled. The council planned to avoid presenting Jonas with two competing maternal claims before his recognition. Helena turned toward Miriam. They told me you wanted him to forget me. Miriam's face tightened. They told me you left before his naming moon. I sent letters every season. I never saw one. Helena looked at the woman who had raised her son. For years, each had been given a version of the other, designed to make grief harden into distance. I hated you, Helena said. The honesty was direct, not cruel. I thought you had taken him and closed every door. Miriam nodded once. I resented a woman I believed had chosen to leave him. Jonas looked between them. Do you still? Helena answered first. No. Miriam took his hand. No. The First Howl Drum gave one steady beat. Not judgment. Recognition. Conrad stood across from Miriam. The custody record opened between them. I allowed the Succession Council to control every report concerning Jonas. You allowed them to decide which truths reached his home. Yes. And you never asked why Helena's name disappeared from every record after her death was never proven. No. He did not soften the answer. Miriam looked at him. You trusted the office because it made fatherhood easier to govern. His jaw tightened. I trusted it because I was afraid that uncertainty around Jonas would weaken him. It weakened everyone except the council. Petra stepped toward the register. The king was carrying a fractured pack after the queen's disappearance. Centralized authority protected the heir. Helena faced her. You told Conrad I had vanished. You told Miriam I abandoned Jonas. You told me Miriam refused my letters. We contained incompatible claims until the heir could be secured. You manufactured the incompatibility, Miriam said. Petra's expression did not change. That is interpretation. The keeper turned another page. A second order had been sewn beneath Helena's release schedule. Conrad's old royal code appeared at the top, but the witness line carried succession office authority rather than his personal seal. The keeper read aloud. Helena Ward remains in closed custody until care bond termination is complete. Jonas's breathing caught. Miriam placed one hand over his heart. The keeper continued. Public restoration of the birth mother to occur only after Miriam Cross is removed from the heir's maternal memory. The order to restore Helena Ward after Miriam Cross was erased remained open on the evidence table. Helena read the final line. Public restoration of the birth mother to occur only after Miriam Cross is removed from the heir's maternal memory. Then she folded the page. No. Council matron Petra Lorne stood beneath the rafters of Stonepine Pack School. The order is suspended pending investigation. I am refusing the plan. The council intended to prevent competing maternal claims around the royal heir. You intended to give me a son taught not to remember the woman who raised him. Petra's expression remained formal. The arrangement protected both maternal positions from open conflict. Miriam kept one hand over Jonas's back. You created the conflict and called the damage protection. Jonas looked up at her. Are you leaving? Miriam lowered herself in front of him. I am leaving the royal nursery. Because of me? Never because of you. He caught her sleeves. Then stay. Miriam touched his hair. I will come when you ask for me. I will sit with you when the wrong note hurts. I will not disappear. Petra stepped closer. A care bond cannot remain stable if the caregiver withdraws from the household. I am not withdrawing from Jonas. I'm withdrawing from a house that used my care in private and called me temporary in law. The royal nursery requires clear authority. Then give me lawful standing. Petra looked toward the elders. That belongs to the full succession council. The council that scheduled my removal before Helena's return became public. Conrad Flint stood beside his surrendered signet. Miriam's departure will not be recorded as abandonment. Petra turned. If she leaves voluntarily, the care record must reflect it. It will reflect why she left. You cannot preserve a maternal claim while she refuses royal household duty. Miriam rose. I performed every duty before anyone named the bond. Do not call my refusal to remain erasable a failure of care. Helena moved beside Jonas. I will stay at Stone Pine while he wants me here, she said, but I will not take Miriam's room, reports, or place beside him. You are the lawful birth mother, Petra said. I am also the woman your council imprisoned for 22 months. I will not help you make another woman disappear. Jonas reached for Helena's hand without releasing Miriam's sleeve. Will both of you be here tomorrow? Helena answered first. I will. Miriam nodded. At breakfast. Conrad faced the school elder. Until the inquiry ends, Jonas remains at Stone Pine under shared access. No council officer may restrict Miriam or Helena without public order. Petra's tone cooled. You cannot create maternal law through an emergency instruction. No, I can stop your office from using uncertainty as permission. Miriam removed her nursery key and placed it on the evidence table. Keep it, Conrad said. No, I will enter because Jonas asks for me, not because the royal household still considers me useful. Jonas began to cry without sound. Miriam held him until his breathing followed the four-note rhythm she tapped between his shoulders. She did not sing. The wrong note was still too close inside him. When she released him, Helena took his hand carefully. If he wakes frightened, Miriam said, count 4 breaths before you touch his wolf. Show me tomorrow. I will. Miriam lifted her travel bag. Conrad followed her to the outer doors but stopped before the threshold. Where will you go? My room's beyond the lower pine boundary. They are outside the royal guard line. That is part of their appeal. May I place 1 guard on the road? 1. None at my door. Done. Miriam looked back. Jonas stood between Helena and the First Howl Drum. Conrad lowered his voice. I asked you to stay for years without giving you the law that should have protected you. You asked me to build a home inside a place where your signature could erase me. I know. You know what the paper says. Understanding begins when Jonas no longer needs my disappearance to remain your heir. He did not reach for her. What must I do before I come to you again? Restore my place beside him in public. Free Helena from every custody order. Then decide whether you want me or only the woman who made your family livable. Miriam crossed the threshold. After sunset, the elders attempted Jonas's first howl without the severance rite. The chant leader raised the royal mallet. Jonas placed both hands on the drum. The mallet struck. No sound came. A second strike produced only the wrong pitch left by the interrupted severance. Jonas pulled away. The school elder lowered the succession staff. For the first time in Stone Pine history, the First Howl Drum refused to recognize the royal heir. The First Howl Drum's refusal cost Jonas his recognition before sunset. Stone Pine elders lowered the succession staff and sealed the royal heir register. Until Jonas completed a lawful first howl, the northern houses could challenge every future claim made in his name. Council matron Petra Lorne watched Conrad Flint receive the ruling. The drum has become unstable around the care bond, she said. Complete the severance, and the heir may attempt the rite again. Jonas stood between Miriam Cross and Helena Ward, his face pale from the wrong note still lodged inside his memory. Conrad looked at the blood-marked decree on the evidence table. No. Petra's tone remained formal. Without recognition, the pack enters a succession vacancy. Then the vacancy remains. You would leave the throne exposed rather than complete a lawful protection? I would leave it exposed rather than enter my son's mind again. The school elder placed the sealed heir register beside Conrad's surrendered signet. Your Majesty, the delay may last a year. I understand. Miriam heard the political cost. She did not mistake it for the restoration of 9 erased years. Conrad turned toward the school witnesses. Bring the Memory Severance Decree. Petra stepped closer. It remains active evidence. It will remain evidence after its authority is destroyed. The blood seal cannot be withdrawn once entered. No, but the law permitting another activation can. Conrad took the decree by its unsealed edge. He did not touch Miriam's name or the ritual instructions written beside her four-note song. Before the elders, he broke the silver activation mark with the school's iron witness blade. The bloodlight went dark. "Record this," he said. "No Memory Severance Rite may be used against Jonas Flint, Miriam Cross, Helena Ward, or any maternal care bond, while I hold the crown." Petra's gaze sharpened. A king cannot abolish pack law through a school order. "Then record it as royal suspension. I will place permanent repeal before the full pack assembly. You risk every disputed succession after this one. I risked my son because the law promised certainty." The decree was sealed inside the public school archive, beyond Petra's custody. Conrad next opened Helena's closed custody record. Every restriction placed on Helena Ward is revoked. Petra folded her hands. Her movements were controlled under succession protection. She was imprisoned. The council residence was not a prison. Helena answered without raising her voice. The doors locked from the outside. Conrad faced the school guard captain. No council officer restricts her movement, correspondence, or access to Jonas again without her consent or a public judgment. Helena looked at him. "Do not call this freedom if Petra still controls the records that made my confinement lawful." "She will not." Conrad removed Petra's council chain from the evidence table and placed it beneath the school elder's staff. Petra Lorne is suspended from authority over Jonas's care, maternal records, correspondence, and succession preparation until the inquiry is complete. Petra did not protest immediately. When she spoke, her voice remained controlled. "You have removed the council, surrendered your signet, delayed the heir, and broken an active right. What remains of royal authority?" Conrad looked toward Miriam, the part willing to answer for what it did. Miriam held his gaze. "Answering begins with Jonas, not with me. I know. Then stop looking at my face after every correct decision." He lowered his eyes to the record. The school notary began drafting temporary protections for Jonas. Helena would retain unrestricted birth mother access. Miriam's care bond would be restored from temporary status and protected from severance. Conrad read the wording before the notary sealed it. "Permanent maternal guardian, Miriam Cross." Miriam stepped toward the table. "What does Helena's line say?" The notary hesitated. "Restored birth mother, subject to care, transition review." Helena's face tightened. Miriam took the unsealed order and read the next condition. "In any conflict of maternal instruction, the established care bond shall hold primary authority until First Howl recognition." She placed the order back on the table. "No." Conrad looked at her. "It protects your place by making Helena secondary. It prevents the council from removing you. It preserves the same structure Petra used. One woman remains secure only if the other is made less dangerous." Petra spoke from beneath guard. "Two equal maternal authorities cannot direct one royal wolf during transition." Miriam turned toward her. "You said that before you let either mother speak to the other. The law requires a final authority. Jonas is not an office." The boy looked from Miriam to Helena. Conrad moved beside the notary but did not take the order from Miriam. "What wording would you accept?" "None written without Jonas. He is done. He is old enough for the council to enter his memory. He is old enough to say who his family is." Helena stepped closer to Miriam. "I will not take a restored place built over hers. And I will not accept protection that teaches him his birth mother ranks beneath me." Conrad looked toward the sealed heir register. "If the maternal order remains unresolved, Stonepine will not permit another First Howl." "Then there will be no First Howl yet," Miriam said. Jonas released both women's hands. He walked to the ancient drum alone. Petra's guards shifted, but Conrad raised one hand and stopped them. Jonas placed his palms on the grey hide. "I know Helena gave birth to me," he said. His voice trembled. "I know Miriam stayed." The First Howl Drum gave two separate heartbeats. Then both rhythms began sounding together. Two heartbeats moved through Stonepine Pack School in different rhythms and still found the same child. The First Howl Drum answered neither one more loudly. Jonas Flint kept both palms on the grey hide. Miriam stood to his left. Helena stood to his right. Between them, his young wolf pressed against the surface of his eyes, gold and frightened. Council Matron Petra Lorne stepped forward. "Remove one maternal influence before the rhythms bind further." Jonas pulled his hands from the drum. "No." "Jonas," Conrad said. The boy looked at him. "Are you going to make me choose?" Conrad did not answer quickly enough. Miriam felt Jonas's breathing shorten. She tapped 4 slow beats against her own wrist, where he could see them. Helena lowered herself beside him. "You do not have to call me anything today." Jonas looked at her. "But you are my mother. I gave birth to you. And Miriam raised me." "Yes." He turned toward the elders. "Then why does one have to stop being my mother?" Petra's voice stayed measured. "Because a royal wolf cannot obey 2 maternal calls during his first public shift." "I am not calling him against Helena," Miriam said. "And I am not asking him to leave Miriam," Helena added. "The danger does not require intent. Conflicting bonds can divide instinct." Jonas touched the drum again. "Helena is my mother because I came from her," he said. "Miriam is my mother because she raised me. I do not want either one gone." The drum gave Helena's heartbeat first. A faster rhythm followed Miriam's 4-count pattern from the fever night. The beats crossed. They did not break apart. A third rhythm rose beneath them. Jonas's. The school elder lowered the succession staff toward the drum and listened. The child's wolf is not divided. Petra's hands tightened around the edge of the evidence table. "One response cannot overturn pack law." "No," Miriam said, "but it can expose when the law is being applied to a danger that is not here." Petra faced Conrad. "If you permit a dual maternal declaration, every house with a disputed heir will use this hall as precedent." Conrad looked at Jonas. "Then the precedent will be that evidence must come before erasure." The elder moved to Jonas's side. "A first howl may proceed only if the child enters without coercion." Jonas nodded. "No whistle," he said. "There will be none," Conrad replied. "No severance chant. None." "And they both stay." Conrad looked at Miriam and Helena. "They stay." The chant leader placed the royal mallet on the floor instead of raising it. Jonas struck the drum with his own hands. The 2 maternal heartbeats returned. His rhythm rose between them, steadier now. Then Jonas's young wolf howled. The sound was not large. It was the thin, fierce cry of a child who had been asked to lose too much and had refused. The First Howl Drum answered him. The sealed heir register opened beneath the elder's hand. "Jonas Flint is recognized," he said. "No fracture is present." Helena covered her mouth. Miriam did not move until Jonas turned toward them. Then both women stepped forward, and he took one hand from each. Petra remained beside the altered authorization. "The drum has confirmed recognition. It has not created 2 equal legal mothers." Miriam looked at Conrad. "That decision still belongs to the law you control." "Not alone," Conrad said. He ordered the keeper to bring Helena's custody renewals and the duplicate code ledger to the center table. Each renewal carried the same succession office mark. Petra Lorne. The scraped witness line on the duplicate authorization bore the matching pressure pattern from her counsel chain. Petra examined the records without lowering her head. "I renewed lawful custody under delegated authority." "You kept Helena confined after her identity was verified," Conrad said. "To protect the heir. You altered Miriam's care terms after she signed." The succession office added, "Authorized conditions." "You scheduled severance before Helena's return became public. I prepared for the conflict now standing before you." Helena tightened her hold on Jonas's hand. "You prepared it by keeping us apart." Petra turned toward the elders. The king approved the memory severance hearing. Conrad stepped beside the evidence table. "Yes." Miriam looked at him. He faced the school witnesses rather than her. "I knew the blood seal would open my son's memory. I knew the rite required Miriam to use the song that saved him. I signed because I feared an uncertain succession more than I feared what the certainty would cost them." No one moved to soften the admission. Conrad continued. "Petra Lorne used the authority I failed to guard. That does not make my choice hers." He placed the broken activation seal beside his surrendered signet. "Record Jonas Flint as heir under 2 protected maternal bonds." Petra's voice cut across the hall. "No such status exists." "Then we will write it." Conrad looked at the open-air register. "And record that the king was the man who tried to sever one of them." 3 days after Jonas Flint's first howl, the full pack assembly gathered beneath the open roof of Stone Pine Hall. The broken memory severance seal lay on the central table. So did Miriam Cross's altered care authorization, Helena Ward's custody record, and the decree bearing Conrad Flint's blood thumb. Miriam stood beside Jonas. Helena stood on his other side. Neither woman stood behind the throne. Council matron Petra Lorne faced the elders without her council chain. The records show procedural violations, she said. They do not prove that memory severance itself is unlawful. Conrad remained before the throne, rather than upon it. The rite entered my son's memory, before any investigation into the lies surrounding his mother's. The king authorized that entry. Yes. Petra's gaze held his. Then the failure belongs to execution, not law. No. The failure begins with a law that calls a child's love dangerous whenever it becomes politically inconvenient. A northern elder rose. Without memory severance, disputed care, bonds may destabilize future heirs. Miriam looked toward him. Then examine the bond. Examine the child. Examine the adults around him. Do not begin by deciding which woman must disappear. Another elder opened the heir register. The drum recognized Jonas under 2 maternal rhythms. That does not guarantee the same outcome in every case. It does not need to, Helena said. It proves erasure cannot be automatic. Jonas shifted closer to Miriam but kept one hand in Helena's. Conrad lifted the original severance law. It had governed royal heirs for generations. Under this law, a birth mother could be confined, a care mother could be classified as temporary without informed consent, and a child's memory could be opened before he was old enough to understand what was being removed. Petra answered calmly. Those abuses can be corrected through amendment. Conrad looked at the decree. I used this law exactly as written. The hall remained still. I knew Miriam's voice was required. I knew she would be forced to reverse the song that saved Jonas. I knew the blood seal would open his memory. He placed the decree beside his surrendered signet. And I activated it because an uncontested heir was easier to defend than the truth. Miriam met his gaze. He did not ask her to rescue him from the admission. Conrad faced the assembly. The memory severance law is repealed. The northern elder struck his staff against the floor. A king cannot erase ancient law alone, then vote against me publicly. One by one, the school witnesses placed the altered authorization, the custody orders, and Jonas's recognized first howl before the assembly. Helena spoke next. I lost 9 years with my son because the council called confinement protection. Miriam followed. I gave 9 years of care under a document later, altered to make that care erasable. Jonas looked toward the elders. I remembered both of them. My wolf did not break. The first staff lowered in support of repeal. Then another. By the final count, the memory severance law no longer existed. Conrad took Miriam's emergency authorization from the table. Before touching her signature, he removed every added condition. Care bond expires upon restoration of lawful birth mother. Maternal memory subject to severance before first howl. He fed both lines into the witness flame. Then he placed a new order before Miriam. Miriam Cross is recognized as Jonas Flint's permanent maternal guardian by night. Her standing shall not reduce, replace, or subordinate the birth mother rights of Helena Ward. Helena read it first. No transition review? None, Conrad said. No council permission for me to see him. Never again. Miriam examined her own line. No expiration? No. She looked at Jonas. What do you want? He answered without hesitation. I want both of you to come home. Helena's eyes filled, but she smiled at him. Miriam signed. Not because guards waited outside a dying child's room. Not because the crown required her obedience. Because her name finally stood beside what she had already lived. Conrad signed after her. The royal household opened Helena's confiscated letters before Jonas that evening. He did not read them all. He chose one from each year and asked Helena to tell him where she had been when she wrote it. Miriam stayed beside him. No one asked either woman to leave so the other could become more real. Later, after Jonas slept between the pine horse and the stack of letters, Conrad found Miriam outside the nursery. Her old key rested in his palm. He held it out. The room is yours if you choose it. My place beside Jonas is mine now. The room is only a room. Yes. She took the key. Conrad did not move closer. I destroyed the law after I used it against you. I restored what should never have depended on my permission. None of that obligates you to forgive me. No. And it does not obligate you to love me. No. He accepted both answers. What I felt for you became another private truth I failed to protect in public. Miriam looked through the doorway at Jonas, and Helena asleep beside the unopened letters. Then do not ask me for a promise tonight. I will not. You may earn the right to ask one day. Conrad lowered his head. That is more than I deserve. It is not about what you deserve. It is about what I may choose. From the nursery, Jonas stirred. Miriam entered first. Helena woke and moved aside without leaving. Conrad remained at the doorway until Jonas reached toward him too. Miriam began the four-note counting song. This time, no one reversed it. 4 living heartbeats found the same rhythm.